Hi everyone. How is everyone doing? Food comas? Yes? Sleepy? Yes? Okay. Well, hopefully I can sort that out. So yeah, I'm Dan Jenkins, and ooh, my thing doesn't like me. I'm Dan_Jenkins on Twitter, and yeah, I founded Nimbleape in 2014 or so. I organized a conference called ComCon in Europe, and I'm a Google developer expert. How many people were here last year? Okay, so like a third of the room or so. So I'm a Google developer expert in web technologies, more specifically in WebRTC. And I love open source software, and I love Lego as well. And it's called Lego, not Legos, for all you Americans here. I'm a Node.js expert, I'm a WebRTC expert, and I just happen to be the guy who does web and telephony. I was a web developer at the very, very beginning of my career, and then I just happened to kind of get into telephony through a project at work. And then ever since then, I've kind of been joining those two worlds together in cool ways. Before WebRTC, that was kind of joining things up using the AMI in Asterisk, using Node. And then when WebRTC kind of came along, we tried it, we failed miserably, and we came back 5 years later, and hey presto, everything's great. I spoke at ClueCon last year. It was my birthday last year, and I made everyone wear party hats in the crowd. That was good fun, but not my birthday today. So yeah, I run Nimbleape Limited in the UK. We're a RTC consultancy company, and we specialize in WebRTC, Asterisk, FreeSWITCH, Elio, and something cool that isn't necessarily brand new, but has been around a while, something called Dractio, something that a guy called Dave Horton made. ComCon, yeah, it's a residential conference in the UK, and we ran it in June, so a month ago, and it was amazing. Kind of this cool mix of learning and fun, and like we even did falconry and held owls, which was pretty cool. So if you missed it this year, it will be back next year. But on to the talk. So FreeSWITCH, WebRTC, and WebVR. So first of all, who's heard of FreeSWITCH? And so you are all pretty tired, because if you don't know what FreeSWITCH is, I'm a bit scared for your sanity. So let's try that again. Who's heard of FreeSWITCH? Okay, that's better this time. Come on. So who's heard of WebRTC? So about the same number of people. That's what I would expect. Who's heard of WebVR? Cool. That's exactly what I expect. So probably 2% of the room have heard of WebVR. So the first question I want to pose is, why did I do a talk about WebVR? I'm a web guy, so it has the word web in the front of it, so obviously like it's kind of applicable to me, because I could. Because it was cool, I wanted to play with something new. And like what better way is there for all of us who are busy to put a talk into a conference and go, yeah, let's do something with WebVR. At the time of putting the talk into the conference, I had no idea what I was doing, and thought, oh, it would be fun to kind of learn on the go. As it turned out, it wasn't really very plain sailing. This was me last week, after probably 2 weeks of on and off, kind of going, I should really get this WebVR thing working. On and off, on and off, on and off every single day, trying to get something working the way that I wanted it to. And this was on the 17th of July, and I finally got something working the way that I wanted it to. So it's definitely not plain sailing, but I'll take you on the journey that I went down, and kind of some of the cool things about what WebVR could give you in the future. So I'll do a demo first, but what are the elements of the demo? So I've got my laptop, it's a Mac, it's running Chrome. I did have a Galaxy S8 with a Google Daydream. Does everyone know what a Google Daydream is? Who doesn't know what Google Daydream is? Many people. So Google Daydream is just a headset. Originally, Google brought out something called Cardboard, and you put your phone into a little cardboard thing that you'd put together. And this is essentially the next version of that. So you get your phone, and you just put it in there, if it's a Daydream-enabled phone. And then you clip it in, and then you put it on top of your head. And hey presto, you've got a VR headset. And then you've also got a little Bluetooth remote that you can kind of control things with as well. So that's Google Daydream. And at the moment, I think they're about $50 on offer. They're £50 in the UK at the moment. So I've got two headsets, and I have two phones, a Samsung Galaxy S8 and a Pixel 2 XL. Just today, the S8 decided to crash whenever I wanted to do my demo. So that's out of the running. Ignore the fact that there was ever an S8. And instead, I've got a Pixel 2 XL, and then I'm running FreeSWITCH 1.6 in DigitalOcean. What was the aim of the demo? The demo aim was to create this immersive conference experience where you could put a headset on and you could watch someone giving a talk in a conference using FreeSWITCH, using WebRTC. So FreeSWITCH 1.6 ended up using Verto because I needed greater control and an MCU conference within FreeSWITCH itself. And then WebRTC, a browser, so in this instance Chrome, we use VP8 and we use Opus, and it's connecting peer-to-peer straight from my phone or my laptop straight to FreeSWITCH. So what is WebVR? WebVR is virtual reality, but within a web framework. That means that we can write HTML, we can write JavaScript. As a web developer, that's cool, that's easy, and we get a VR experience because other people have done all of the clever stuff for us. That's pretty powerful in terms of being able to address however many devices out there that can support VR. That means that we can write 5 or 6 lines of extra code and suddenly get this VR experience. Whereas if you were doing it natively, writing a native app, native game or whatever, then that's inherently more difficult. There's tons and tons of devices out there that already support WebVR. So there's Google Cardboard, that cardboard thing that Google released probably 3 years ago, 4 years ago. There's Daydream, there's the Gear VR, Oculus Rift, Oculus Go. Oculus Go is that new one that's about $200 instead of $500. PlayStation VR, a couple of other ones as well. The sad thing is, if you want to do kind of something like this rather than PlayStation VR or the Oculus, it's pretty much Android only at the moment. But that's pretty much how it goes when it comes to new web development technologies. Apple is 5, 6 years late. So WebVR in this demo, VR in the browser, we use an existing headset, and there's very, very, very little code. And FreeSWITCH, nothing special about FreeSWITCH at all. It was a 1.6 install from apt, and we connect to Verto using the Verto client library, just with some modifications. And yeah, the goal was to make a Verto conference in a VR space. So, I mean, you can't really get excited about all this stuff, just me talking about it. So kind of let's take a look at it. What do I need to do? I need to exit. I need to mirror my display. And I need to show you Verto. So anyone that's watched ClueCon Weekly knows exactly what Verto Communicator is. Verto Communicator is an example project within the FreeSWITCH codebase, and it allows us to have a full-on conference with full control over an MCU type session within FreeSWITCH. So you can see here, I've adapted this, and I'll show you how later. But you can see there's Simon, his wonderful hair. Wave again, Simon. There's me, and we're in this VR space. So I'm surrounded by trees, and there's this big kind of cinema screen in front of me. And I can click on this button here, and it takes me into this VR experience. So it gets rid of the rest of the UI that I don't care about when it comes to VR, and I can put in these elements. So what this is essentially a canvas, one big canvas, and the browser is kind of drawing into this canvas all of these 3D objects. So you can walk around this whole space if you write enough code. So you can walk around this space, you can move forward, you can move backwards, you can spin round. Imagine, so this is showing it within the browser. Imagine you can, I'm not going to put this on. I'd look dumb putting on a headset in front of that's just weird. But you can put this on with the controller. The controller can connect to the browser using WebBluetooth. So you get control, and using WebBluetooth, you know the position of the controller, what buttons get pressed, whether or not I want to go backwards and forwards in the space. And hey presto, you've got this kind of VR experience in front of you. Anyone could go in and join this conference and probably break things quite a bit. The first person, don't all do it, please. Let's nominate someone. Who do I want to nominate? Jay, you can do it. Jay, do you want to go to HTTPS in Chrome? HTTPS / 63 B7 D22 C.ngrok.io. 63B7D22C.ngrok.io. Yes? So hopefully, there's me and Simon in this conference at the moment. Pardon? ngrok. N. It's on the screen right next to you. Oh dear. ngrok.io. ngrok's a really great tool. While I'm waiting for Jay, ngrok's a really great tool when you're developing WebRTC applications, because when you develop WebRTC applications now, other than developing on localhost, you have to have an HTTPS certificate to be able to make everything work, accessing cameras and things like that. And so ngrok essentially makes a tunnel down to my laptop. So this version of Verto is actually running on my laptop. And Jay's going to connect via ngrok to my laptop. But ngrok means I automatically get an HTTPS URL completely free of charge, and I can just send it out to anyone. And hey presto, I'm able to use all of the cool stuff within the browser. Jay has failed. It's loading. Cool. Okay, so hopefully in a minute, we'll see that the video is going to get added, and this kind of projector screen is going to get added. The extension you need to call is 3500. It's the default MCU conference bridge. Oh dear. Okay. Jay broke it. Anyway, that's disappointing. You can't even see Simon anymore. It's really sad. But you get the gist of it. We can start creating these kind of awesome experiences. We can make shapes. All of these shapes are individually made and individually drawn. You can make dots, you can make people, you can make any 3D shape and put it into that VR experience, which gives you an awful lot of power to make immersive experiences using web technologies only. So Simon's back. No Jay. No Jay, come on. Come on, Jay. And then I'll move on. I promise. It will get there eventually. It just takes a little while. If you've ever been into a Verto conference, it just takes a while. No? Okay, I'm going to give up. But if you want a proper demo, come and see me afterwards, and I'll show you using a headset. He's there. Oh, but he didn't give his camera permissions or something. It's okay, Jay. We forgive you. The police are coming for you, Jay. Anyway, okay. So something that you wouldn't have seen in that demo are some of the issues that I faced. And it was only when I started developing it that I went, yeah, well, that just doesn't work that way. So the main issue is, let's say everyone is wearing a headset in a session. Where is the webcam on a phone? It's now completely behind a screen and it can't see me. It's not showing me anymore. So within the demo, the phone actually connects as a viewer only, and can send audio, but it doesn't send video because it would add loads of black screens to the experience. But when I started thinking about it and going, oh, this would be a really cool demo, like everyone like wearing headsets. I could buy a couple of headsets, put them into the audience. That would be really cool. But it didn't make any sense when I started building it, because suddenly you had to think about the fact that, oh, there's logistics here, and there's a webcam that's hidden. And hey, that's not going to work. So you have to start thinking about things a little bit differently, in the sense that it is different. It's a new medium. So the camera becomes unusable. You saw in that MCU output that was on that big kind of cinema display, me and Simon next to each other. And what happens when someone joins is that display gets longer. So let's say you have 5 or 6 people in that room. The display gets longer and longer and longer. But within the framework that I used called A-Frame, you can't put those videos on, well, really it's one video because it's an MCU output. You can't put that onto a curved thing that surrounds you. And so you end up with this really long cinema display that that kind of gets further away in the distance. So you have to start thinking about these things. With an SFU, that becomes really easy because it's not one big video anymore. It's 5 or 6 separate videos, and you could put them at angles. So you're probably all thinking, well, that was a bit of a crap demo. Yeah? No? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Well, it kind of was. But that was the whole point of the task. The whole point of the task was to kind of play with something new, something that's cutting edge, and find out what went wrong. I remember playing around with WebRTC 6 years ago, and it all went wrong. Look where WebRTC is today. WebRTC is now on millions and millions of devices all over the world, and we can just pick out our phone, we can go on Facebook Messenger or whatever, and we can call someone. Hey presto, it works. So WebRTC was in exactly the same position 6 years ago or so. So don't count out WebVR just yet. So yeah, all the little mini parts of the demo. So we used a slightly modified version of Verto. Verto, the client library, is very rigid in the sense that it wants to create a video tag for you, and it wants to put that video tag into the page. And that's kind of okay, but within the way that WebVR works, you have to create that video tag yourself, and you have to be in control of it to be able to then pass all of those assets, that video asset, into WebVR. But really, all of that, I'm not going to show you all of the Verto code because it's in the source code of FreeSWITCH, and you can go and take a look at it. But in terms of creating that VR experience, all those trees, how many lines is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 lines of HTML. That's it. That's all it took to create that whole experience. I had to add a little bit of JavaScript to kind of manipulate that video tag, get a stream, attach that stream, and then kind of take that video and move it into VR land. And that's what all of that code does. But that's it. I mean, that's probably 20 lines of JavaScript. That's pretty amazing for a technology that is less than a year old, really. I definitely couldn't have done that with WebRTC 6 years ago. That little bit of code at the bottom, function update video res, is a kind of a little thing that we had to do because it's an MCU, because Verto outputs via an MCU. As soon as everyone joins the conference, they get placed into the video resolution space that you've told is the conference. And so it tries and places them like up there and down there, whatever is the best use of space. But obviously I had that cinema display in front of me that I needed to fill and carry on filling. So we send a Verto message up to Verto and say, we send a mod command of vidres with a resolution. And hey presto, FreeSWITCH kind of takes that and goes, oh, I can fit those two videos right next to each other. And that's pretty cool within WebRTC space, being able to send those commands up to an MCU dynamically and changing the resolution on the fly. I don't really know of any other MCU out there that can actually do that on the fly in such a nice way. So, yeah, was it successful? Well, as you saw, it was kind of successful and kind of not. I did create a VR experience, but it didn't curve round, it didn't have separate videos, it wasn't fully immersive. And I mean, Jay didn't help with not giving camera permissions and ruining my demo. So I mean, it's kind of awesome, but kind of, I'm giving a talk next week and it kind of doesn't work. So, does WebVR have promise? I don't want you to leave here and go, oh, that VR talk was not very good, was it? It absolutely does have promise. And like I said, WebRTC, think back to WebRTC. Can you go and build something with video within WebVR today? Definitely not when it comes to MCU. There are too many restrictions unless you want to write a ton of code, at which point you'd probably end up writing something natively anyway. Absolutely, if you want to build something with an SFU. So there's Jitsi, there's Asterisk. There are all these great projects that are SFUs, and they give you individual streams for every single video. I can then take those individual streams and I can put them around me as though we're all sitting at a table. I could even make a table in VR land and make people, fake people, and then put the videos on as their heads. That's pretty cool. And I could do that tomorrow. And that would be far, far easier than how it was with FreeSWITCH. It's not because FreeSWITCH isn't good, it's just not the right thing for this application. So yeah, why am I talking about it? Always be pushing technology forward. Don't be scared of failure. I could have quite easily changed this talk to something about WebRTC. I know everything there is to know about WebRTC when it comes to integrating apps with FreeSWITCH, with other technologies, with other areas. And I could have easily changed my talk. I mean, Sharon would have probably killed me, but I could have done it. So why didn't I do it? I keep going back to this. WebRTC was a bit weird 7 years ago, 6, 7 years ago. And now it's used by millions of people every single day in some form. Do I see this becoming an amazing thing that we can go and utilize in loads of different scenarios? Absolutely. Imagine being able to wear a doctor being able to wear a VR headset and be able to kind of practice on a body that's in front of you without having to actually have all of that equipment. That's pretty cool. My demo half failed. I expected it to half fail. But there's loads of experiments already out on the web that you can use. If you want to try them while you're at ClueCon, I've got 2 headsets here. As long as you've got an Android phone, everything works really well. A up-to-date Android phone, one that's come out in the past 2 years or so. You can go and use any of those demos, and they're really, really cool, really in-depth, and it's difficult to actually explain them without you going and using them. You can create a whole new world in virtual reality using the web tools today, and you can write 5 lines of HTML using something called A-frame, and hey presto, we've got this cool experience. And I'm all about making new experiences. So thank you very much for listening to my half-failed talk. I'm quite happy with a half-failed talk because it introduced you all to this new concept, this new medium that we're kind of getting used to. MCU's not the best use of WebVR, absolutely. But you can absolutely go build something today. You could build something with audio today, and it would all work really, really well. And that's pretty cool. So thank you very much. And has anyone got any questions?
Have you experimented with WebGL?
So the question was, have I experimented with WebGL? I haven't actually, I haven't written any WebGL for WebVR type stuff myself, but absolutely you can go and that's how you create all your shapes. So all of those trees in that thing was an import for me. I brought in a scene. Where is it? Here you go. Environment preset forest. So you bring in a scene in that code. You say, I want to bring in a preset of forest. There's loads of other presets. And all of those shapes are WebGL things that someone else has already made for me.
So it's like actually rendering WebGL inside of the browser?
Yes. And then it also brings in Canvas as well within the browser. And that's how it actually puts the video on there. It draws the video. So the video tag within the browser wasn't actually in that WebVR experience. The video tag was actually elsewhere in the browser, still within the page. It just wasn't shown. And then it takes all of the data from the video tag and takes all of those pixels and puts them into the WebGL Canvas experience. So it's kind of, it is drawing everything constantly using Canvas and WebGL. Any other questions? Did you do anything with 3D audio? So I didn't in this demo, but you absolutely could. Absolutely. And it's actually built into some of the WebVR experiments where you can start utilizing 3D audio, as long as you've got the hardware that then supports it. But absolutely you can. It's not within this basic demo. There's 5 lines of HTML and 20 lines of JavaScript, but you absolutely can.
You know there's a mode in FreeSWITCH customized video filter? That it can filter out your background so you can here.
Oh yes, absolutely. So you can make your own backgrounds into videos, can't you? Within the MCU output. So in ClueCon Weekly, you always see Brian with like New York behind you. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. But it's kind of, yeah, it's not the same. So the sense that you can actually put a video into a 3D environment, that filter is only a 2D thing. You absolutely could utilize it in some form within that, but that's just the MCU output. There's absolutely no reason why you couldn't, say, walk around that environment and actually have a two-sided video where you walk around and you see the video backwards. That's something that you just don't happen to have in a 2D experience. You have to start thinking about things in a 3D world.
All right, big round of applause for Jan Jenkins.
Thank you very much.